Hello, this is Michael from the Boardgames Chronicle. Welcome to another material about Conquest Consequence, a game for 3 players describing the developments in the Far East and Pacific during the Second World War, actually before Second World War II, from 1936 till 1945. In my 2 previous materials, first of all, I looked at the components in my unboxing movie, and then in the second material, I described the general rules for this game. Today, I'm starting a small short sub-series when I will be discussing each and every faction separately. Today, we'll start with Japan, then we'll go through the Soviets, last but not least, we'll go to the capitalists. So, without further delay, let us zoom on the militaristic faction that is Japan. Hello everybody, this is Michael from the Boardgames Chronicle blog. And again, I'm inviting you to another material about Conquest and Consequence. We already can watch the materials created about unboxing, the general rules, and also the first material in the series about specifics of each and every faction in this game. That is, we started with Japan. So this is a 4th movie. Today we'll focus on capitalistic faction. We'll see the composition, the special rules connected to this. I will also share some strategic ideas about what to do. But of course, this is a sandbox game, and whatever you would like to do with each and every of the factions is up to you. You have pretty total freedom. Okay, so let's start. The US capitalist faction is composed, first of all, of 3 countries. US itself is here, the British Empire, and the nationalistic China. It's much more complex faction than the Japanese, which was simply unilateral with only one country. When we look at the map, we can see, first of all, the main capital here in Los Angeles of the US faction. We have also the sub-capitals Nanking for nationalistic China, and also the Delhi for the British Empire. We should also have a look at the provinces. The core provinces for US are here. The colonies are Alaska, and also the Philippines. Philippines, here we see Manila with a base, yeah, and this is the strait and the island. For the British, the home provinces are Canada, and here in Australia and New Zealand. The Malaya, the India are treated as colonies. There are some rules which says that you can only build limited units in colonies, while you can build, all units in home territories. Of course, the British control a lot of island here in South Pacific. Let me see if I have anything more to add regarding colonies, capitals. No, I think this is everything. By the way, when playing particular faction, I strongly recommend using this player aids. While they have mainly, the general information here, you would have specifics for each and every faction here. Okay. Where should we now look at? We should look at the track. This is one of the most important and interesting parts of each and every faction. Let's look now at the 3 main resources, I would say factors which influence the production of each faction. Remember, in Japanese case, resources were kind of a factor which was limiting them from the conquest and going into the war, because during the peacetime you look at population and industrialization. During the war, you look at all 3: population, resources, industrialization, and your production is equal to the smallest of those. In the case of the US, they have plenty of resources. They have plenty of population. Their limiting factor is industrialization. It's only at 6, at the start. And if you look at, for example, Japanese, it will be 11. So this is definitely something you need to work on. Okay. What do we see here? Yeah. Look that at the beginning of the game, the US faction consists of US itself and nationalistic China. The British are not there in the faction yet. That is why the resources and population of nationalistic China is added to US. You see, US plus NAT, US plus NAT for population and for resources. But for the British Empire, it is not added. Should we convince the British to join us, we'll get additional 6 population and resources. We'll jump from 11 to 17. This is the US total, and from 10 to 16 for resources. The only country which can make sure that the British are allied to somebody is US. The British cannot be allied to Japanese or to the Soviets. They can still try to prevent getting enough influence by US, but at some point in time, it might be that the British Empire will become US ally. And then this population and resource immediately jump here, which will again not change much during the war or even during the peacetime for the Americans, because they are limited by industrialization. Now let's have a look at this industrialization. The cost of building new factories is 7. This is the one of the highest costs. The Japanese has 6, the Soviets have 8. Okay, but what is important, when the US is being attacked, it very quickly goes down to 4 by 3 and then to 3. So they can catch up with industry pretty quickly. I would like just to remind you that when somebody declares war on you, for example, let's say the Japanese declares war on a US faction, you just remove this peace marker, and this was the other way around. And it says that Japan declared war on you, so you have your cost of industrialization -1, not -$1. Once again, I repeat it, but 1 level less. First level is 7, second level is 4. So it costs you 4 now to build new factories and increase industrialization every step. If you declare war on somebody, you just flip the peace marker, leave it here, and it means that you declared war on Japan, and you have -1 VP at the end of the game. What else interesting we see here? Yes, we have a starting hand of 8, but it is doubled, so the US actually starts with 16 cards. Japan has 7 cards, USSR has 6 cards at the beginning. 16 cards really allows you in the first term, so the 1936, to do a lot and to focus probably mainly on production and diplomacy, but it really allows you to do a lot. Okay, emergency command. The emergency command is a command which you are giving in particular season. Just a reminder, spring, summer, fall, winter, but which when the card does not match the season. So if you are giving the summer card during the spring, you can move 4 units when you cannot enter the battle. Now it's time to talk about the nationalistic China on this chart here. We have 2 important things. So we have cities controlled by nationalistic China in China. We can see here 1, 2, 3, 4. Actually, this is Nankin, which counts for 2, if I remember correctly. Just give me a second. Yeah, exactly. And this is the control of 4. The second thing is loyalty. You see, during the China Civil War, the nationalistic China has much larger army, but much less loyal. The loyalty starts at 1. For communists, loyalty will start at 3. yeah, it will start at 3 already. So there is a huge difference. How to increase the loyalty? You can spend those investment cards, which has factories, either on industrialization or on building the loyalty. It costs 5 factories to build one level of loyalty. So it's a huge, huge effort. Just a reminder, 7 is for industrialization. So really the US needs to start investing in its economy to be able to fuel the war, both on their own production, but also on the production of the nationalistic China. How those two things work together? First of all, when we have a production phase, the proxy power, in this case nationalistic China, is producing first the smaller amount of those two. So each turn they produce one with such loyalty, excuse me, and they can only build one step of a unit or increase it. And the important factor is also that the Chinese Civil War can give you victory points, and the factions get 1 VP per nationalistic cities. So this factor gives VPs to the US. I just would like to remind that you can win the game if you reach 25 VPs. It can be done peacefully. In order to get 25, you count your industrialization, you count the cities in China for US. This is a special thing, and some other stuff which I went through in the basic game description. So this is the track. I think I went through almost everything. There is one thing more. Normally, the American British forces should not intervene in China. However, the situation might cause it, and you would like to do it. If you intervene in China, what changes? The most important factor is for your VPs. So I told you that normally you are getting the number of VPs equal to the cities, controlled cities. But if you attack in the China, sorry, your popularity dropped. You are getting the number of VPs equal to the smaller of those two. So be careful if you'd like to really put American troops into the China. That would be everything for this track. Let me now look at the initial unit setup. You have all the setup, of course, here, beautifully presented. And let's have a look what we have for the US and nationalistic China. Just check one thing, if I have everything correctly, of course, I should have one more cadre here in Hawaii. Yeah, this is something which I was missing and just had a chance to correct it. And yeah, we should have one more here. So if we look at the initial setup, a lot of forces here in US, some of them predefined. For example, Navy unit, carrier, fort, Marines. We have also some cadres which you can choose by yourself. They are also here and here. Not too many units, mainly the defending forts, some Navy, much less than maybe not much less, but less than Japanese at the beginning. And looking at the production, 6 versus 10, also not being able to catch up too quickly with such forces disposition. What else do we have on the map? Also nationalistic China. Pretty large army, you see, 4 militia, plus 3 cadres that can be, for example, forts. So in comparison to communistic China, who has 2 units, it should be fort here. Yeah, I will put it later on. It's much larger army. The army of British is maybe not the strongest one. We have only cadres, but remember that at the beginning you don't have control over them, and that you just only need to get it. But of course, it would be worthwhile to invest heavily in in those units. Give me a second now, and I will be back with the analysis of the. Okay, I'm back. So here are all the units from all the factions. I put them in order of initiative during the battle. As you can see, just let me correct the militia. And let us analyze the capitalistic faction. Here are the British, here are the US forces, here are the nationalistic forces. What we can see here, first of all, that the US forces are most versatile. All types, forts, aircraft, carriers, submarines, navy, tanks, infantry, marines are here. Also, this is the strongest army of all. Almost each and every unit can have 4 steps, with exception, of course, of marines. They were smaller groups, but they are the same size as Japanese. When we look at the British, we can see that the maximum size of them is 2. They are versatile, but not so strong as Americans. It clearly shows that their focus was, of course, in Europe, Mediterranean, and Atlantic, to some extent only being present here. The interesting part is about nationalistic China. They have forts and militia readily available for them here, and militia does not need supply. However, when using the American production, you can train their units and build the planes and tanks who will be fighting as normal units. You can also build I forgot about it, the infantry with US production points. Important note: while militia has always the supply, for example, those units need to have a supply from US, so via ocean and then through the controlled provinces. The forts, if I remember correctly, are also always in supply. So on the paper, the US Army really looks daunting, but you need to build it, and you need to invest in industrialization in order to be able to do it. It's all about units. Let's move to the last point, the specifics of US. Okay, we'll now be talking about some special rules for US. I left the units here for time being. They are also described here in the details. First and foremost, I would like to draw your attention to the British. Only US can become their ally, so they can become the satellite of US. And it's a really strong addition in economic terms, 6 population and 6 resources to the American war effort. Important note, you see those 3 years here. Each of those years at the beginning, you're adding one influence in Britain, actually in India, for US. This is very important because it really drives British to become the ally of US. Another thing, if Japan attacks Vietnam or Thailand, if I remember correctly, there's a special rule that also one US influence goes to British. So this is a really interesting and important rule for the US. Second important rule, which you can find here, is that at some point in time, you will be getting a lot of production for US. First of all, this is written here. In 1942, 43, 44, you would be getting the carrier, the navy, and the submarine. In 42 with 1 combat value, in 43 with 2 combat values, in 44 with 3 combat values. It can also happen earlier if somebody declares war on US. From the next year, those things will start to come. And this is not everything. If US is declared war on, there will be a reaction force. In the next 3 new years, you'll be getting 1 infantry card and 1 plane card. So what will happen if somebody attacks US? Without even any production, you will be getting like 5 units for free next years. Those units will be growing in strength. So it really, shows how the Americans started to develop. Very, very important rule, which I would like you to know about. Last but not least, these rules are similar both for Soviets and for Americans. China's rules for US and aggression in China. First and foremost, if there is any kind of aggression by nationalistic China anywhere here, that's not treated by the world as any kind of aggression. It's a proxy war, nobody cares about it, there is no world reaction. Simple like this, yeah. So this is what happens. I told you here that when the US invades the China with their units, the victory points calculation will change, and this is very important, yeah. We need to remember about it. Also, during the game we will be playing the cards of the diplomatic cards, and we should have some wild cards. Yeah, the wild cards in China are worth 2 for US, so they can much easier get influence there. This is the important rule also about China. And this entry of US, which I was mentioning, is only possible if they are at war with Japanese. What else? Japan was able to suppress, but also the nationalistic China and the US forces can also suppress partisans. Just a reminder, there is a the ground attack against communistic partisans, but if you roll 6, they appear again, and unfortunately. What else? This is, I think, most of the stuff which I wanted to discuss. There is still possibility to play with the 2 players as Japan and as US, but I will not go there. That will be all for the capitalistic faction. As you have seen, this is a faction which is most powerful. It has some specific rules, and it gradually is growing its potential, its might with the time. It starts slowly with industrialization at 6 and loyalty of nationalistic China only at 1, but it can pick up speed pretty rapidly should there be such a need. That will be everything today for this faction. Thank you very much for listening to this. The next one will be Soviets, very interesting and very specific faction. One note which I would like to make is that each and every of those factions plays completely differently. Still, the game really nicely balances out, so you don't have such a situation that 2 factions are ganging up on one. No, it's really well made, and everybody has somewhere some interest. And the civil war in China, this aspect is very well described and really important for this game. If you liked this video, please give thumbs up. If you'd like to see more content like this, kindly please subscribe. Thank you very much for watching this, and I invite you to the 3rd part of the nation's overview of CNC. It will be solid. Thank you. Bye.